a great race day. I think we're ready to go. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Broken now with the roar of horsepower. The Indycars now come to life. Danny Sullivan, the pole sitter, the Penske team occupying the front row, ready for the challenge of the day. 200 miles around this magnificent circuit at Elkhart Lake. All engines are fired. The cars are ready. The drivers and crews are ready to go racing. It's been an unbelievable season for the Indycars. Who would have thought that Allenzer Jr. could tangle like this with Mario Andretti and still score the win at Long Beach? Or at Indianapolis, in a closing lap sprint for the checker, Emerson Fittipaldi slammed into Allenzer Jr., then regained control and took the $1 million win. Who would have believed that you can be in an incident twice in the same race and yet win? Consider Mario Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi at Detroit, first on lap number 1. Then again, later in the race, the same two drivers. Fittipaldi would disengage, claw back to the front, and score the win. At Portland, who would have thought that Emo's team would cut him so close on fuel that he would run out after winning and hitch a ride to winner's circle? Or what about the Meadowlands, where Bobby Rahal held off a charging Fittipaldi in a downpour, scoring a much-needed win for Cosworth? Talk about the unbelievable. Remember Toronto, where Mario Andretti, trying to pass Teo Fabi, slammed into Roberto Guerrero's parked car. Or in the closing laps, when Michael Andretti shoved Fittipaldi aside to take the lead and the win. Michael's first of 2 victories. When Danny Sullivan slammed the wall in practice for the Indianapolis 500, many thought that his season was over. But not Danny. Who would believe that still recovering from a broken arm, he scored the win at the Pocono 500? Then in qualifying last week at Mid-Ohio, Teo Fabi tangled with Fabrizio Barbaza in what could have been a disaster. Who would have thought that he would jump into the backup car and take the pole, then score the first win for Porsche in the IndyCars? Now this unpredictable season is rolling toward an end. While 3,175 miles have actually been raced, the crews and their equipment have tens of thousands of miles more logged in. It's a long journey to year's end. Men and machines are tired. The season-long odyssey now brings them to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, the giant Road America circuit. Here, Fittipaldi leads the points. But at Road America, the unbelievable is commonplace. ESPN, celebrating its 10th year as the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. It's a beautiful, crystal clear and cool day just outside of Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin at the Road America circuit for the Road America 200. Hello, I'm Paul Page, and this race today, with only 3 more left in the season, has different meanings for a number of different people. Let's take, for example, Danny Sullivan, the pole sitter. He's not yet re-signed with Penske for next year, and he could really do with another victory this season to help cement his deal. On the other hand, if he does in fact win, or even does well, then he becomes a spoiler, pulling points away from his Penske teammate Rick Rick Mears. Well, Rick Mears is looking for his 4th IndyCar crown. A victory today is extremely important in that battle if he's to close the gap with Emerson Fittipaldi. And then let's consider the Andrettis, Mario and Michael. Michael already has 2 victories this season. He's driving at the top of his form, and he still has a mathematical chance for an IndyCar crown as well. His father, Mario, on the other hand, has not won since a year ago at Cleveland. A victory there would really buoy his spirits. And then there's Teo Fabi, just out his victory last week in the Porsche. He's looking for 2 in a row, and he too has a chance at the IndyCar World title. Now the points leader is Emerson Fittipaldi, but for Emo, this weekend has been quite a saga. For that story, let's go to Gary Gerald.
Paul, the starting position for Emerson Fittipaldi in the 3rd row is the farthest he's been back on a starting grid this season since the 2nd race of the campaign, which was way back in April on the streets of Long Beach. But there may be good reason why Emerson had some difficulty in the qualifying session, because just prior to that Friday session, he learned that his teenage daughter Juliana had been hospitalized because of a kidney ailment in Miami. Immediately after that qualifying session, Emerson and his wife Teresa left the racetrack hurriedly, took his private jet back to Miami to be with Juliana, who underwent emergency surgical procedures both Friday night and again on Saturday morning. Happily, doctors say she's recovering very, very nicely, and certainly that's a relief to everyone involved. But as a consequence, Emerson missed all of yesterday's final qualifying and practice sessions in his car. He's had only limited time this weekend on this circuit where he is the defending champion. He also has the pressure of a championship point chase very much in his mind, as well as the well-being of a teenage daughter. A lot of things going through the mind of Emerson Fittipaldi as he gets set now for 200 miles. Paul?
So Fittipaldi with a great deal on his mind, Johnny Rutherford, but will it affect his driving?
Well, he certainly had his share of distractions for the weekend, but I can assure you, Paul, when the green flag drops, Emerson Fittipaldi will be down to business in the cockpit. He hasn't had the opportunity to do the testing that the other teams have done, but the weather has been inclement, so, you know, that's not really a factor for him. His team did have the foresight to do the full load fuel test the first day when it was dry, so they've got that out of the way, but did they really do the fuel computations or have the opportunity to? That will be the question.
It will be, because fuel is always critical here at Road America. For an update on that story, let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, it's ironic that Emerson Fittipaldi utilized expert fuel calculations 1 year ago to put his team into victory lane. Now, 1.8 miles per gallon is the magic number here at Road America, and all the teams, as you said, are very concerned about fuel. There may be 2 teams, however, that may have a distinct advantage over their counterparts. Remember, 1 week ago, Roger Penske introduced real-time engine analysis to their team, being able to get the same sort of readouts that these fellows, the Porsche people, have been utilizing all year. Those 2 teams may have just an edge on the rest of them in terms of mandating and getting that 1.8 miles per gallon throughout the course of the race. Now, the reason for all this concern about fuel is just the track itself, Paul Page.
Well, the track here is a little over 4 miles long, and the way the IndyCars figure it, 11 turns around. A very complicated course. Let's take a look at the starting grid. Danny Sullivan has his first pole of the year in a record-breaking performance. And with his teammate Rick Mears to the outside, it gives Roger Penske his first front row since the season opener at Phoenix. The second row, Michael Andretti. He was runner-up here in 85 and 86. And Arie Luyendyk has finished in the top 10 in 4 of 5 previous Elkhart Lake starts. Emerson Fittipaldi in the third row won 2 of the last 3 events here at Road America. And Al Unser Jr. finished second here as a rookie in 1983. The fourth row, Mario Andretti, a 3-time winner of this event and the all-time lap leader at Road America. Scott Pruitt, who led from start to finish here last year in a Trans Am race. The fifth row is Teo Fabi, winner last week at Mid-Ohio, going for 2 in a row. And Derek Daly, who finished a strong 6th here a year ago. The sixth row, John Jones, makes his best ever start in a kart race. And Bobby Rahal, who finished second here in 84 and in 88. The seventh row, Raul Boesel, has 2 top 10 finishes in 3 appearances at Road America. And Didier Taze, making his 3rd start at Elkhart Lake. The 8th row, Kevin Cogan, has driven in every kart race here at Road America. And Randy Lewis, who finished 9th here a year ago. The 9th row, Scott Brayton, making his first start here in 5 years. And Pancho Carter, his best effort here was 7th in 83. The 10th row, Fabrizio Barbazza, who came home 8th in his rookie season in 1987. And Roberto Guerrero, who in 1986 started dead last and finished 4th. The 11th row, Ludwig Heimrath and Steve Saleen. The the 12th row, Scott Harrington and Jeff Wood. In row 13, it's Guido Dacco and Scott Goodyear. And the 14th and final row is John Beekes and Indy's 4-time winner, A.J. Foyt. Well, they've completed one complete parade lap. They're on the pace lap now, heading for the final corner. You couldn't ask for a better day for racing. 66 degrees, very comfortable. The skies crystal clear. It's a magnificent day at Elkhart Lake, the Road America course. Looking ahead as they come up the starting field now. 50 laps of racing lie ahead of these 28 Indy cars. They climb the hill under the bridge. You take a look at the green flag. Nick Finoro waves the green, and Danny Sullivan drag races with Rick Mears down for the first corner of the track. Heading for the first corner, Sullivan is able to edge his way ahead, but take a look at Andretti moving up into second place.
Oh, he really pulled a shot there. Got on the inside, followed with Danny Sullivan, and moved right into second. Emerson Fittipaldi has moved up. He is running in fourth right now.
Emerson Fittipaldi will be the focus throughout this race as the points leader, and also with the weekend that we have already described to you. It's been a very trying weekend for Emerson Fittipaldi, but now he is doing what he does best. He is beginning to challenge Rick Mears in a fight for third. We take a look at the front of the field as Michael Andretti comes up to challenge Danny Sullivan.
There we saw Michael making what a move like he's been making recently and getting away with, really charging down into a turn, hard braking, out-braking his opponent to take over that position. He is one to be watched today.
Challenge continuing back at third place as Fittipaldi, a puff of smoke off of Michael's car. Fittipaldi runs alone in third as a battle broke off just as they came down to the bottom of the hill. They climb the hill now, and what is a blind corner as Fittipaldi begins that climb.
Yes, he's making the carousel, they call it, in the back part of the course, which is a little bit of a descending downhill, and you're right, Michael Andretti was showing some smoke, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
And Al Unser Jr. at the same time got around Rick Mears, picked up the position on board with little Al now as he heads down past the kink and toward Canada Corner. One of the nice things about these natural terrain circuits is they have romantic names for many of the corners here. This is Canada Corner, and then little Al propels his machine up through Thunder Valley.
Yes, heading toward the Mitchell Bridge, so everything is named around here, Paul, and it's very picturesque. Beautiful race course. Here we see Andretti.
Mario Andretti as he tries to challenge Ari Lyondike in the Prodini car, lying just ahead. And there is Bobby Rahal, that Preco machine, as they battle their way to the conclusion of lap 1 on board with Bobby Rahal.
And this is the time, Paul, when you want to get everything settled down to make sure that the car is right. It's a long way around here, so you have plenty of time to sort things out. You have a lot of different conditions, so you're feeling the car, making sure that everything's working right on the radio to the crew. A lot of things going on from the drivers and the crews right now.
Rick Mears runs in fourth. Black number 7, that's Ari Lyondike running in 5th place in what should be a very, very tactical race. And just behind Lyondike, you're on board now with Scott Pruitt. This is the second straightaway. It's a downhill run for these cars.
There we can see an attempt by Mario to make the pass. Maybe he got by Pruitt, but he didn't quite have enough to get up to Lyondike. So Mario's on the move.
Mario Andretti able to move now up into 7th place as he carves his way up through the field. Indicated at the top of the show, Mario Andretti would really like to see a win.
Yes, he certainly knows his way around here, being a 3-time winner, and he says this is one of his favorite racetracks.
Mario also has 2 wins here in the now defunct Formula 5000 series. So he knows his way definitely around this course. Rahal, as he comes up to challenge Teo Bobby. The fight there is back in 9th place on board Rahal now.
That was interesting. You wonder if Rahal has some extra steam or if Bobby just missed a gear or didn't quite get it off the turn right.
Again through the kink on the backside of the race course. One of the faster sections of the track as they roar down, climb all over the brakes at this point, and in through Canada Corner. Again, they climb an elevation. There's a 175-foot elevation difference from the top of the course up at the first turn to down at the bottom of the carousel. Sports car advocates, the thousands that have raced here, see this as a 14-turn course. The Indy cars only count 11 because truly the Indy cars don't see a couple of the corners. Turn 2 with the little bend is really a straightaway for the Indy car.
Yeah, they're very, very subtle. so we decided to, I think the Indycar decided to cut those out and name them.
Mario Andretti continues up through the field as he moves around Arie Luyendyk and now sets his sights on the Pennzoil car of Rick Mears just ahead. And all three cars use the runoff on the course as they continue their fight.
Yes, it looks a little bit slick. I've noticed a lot of cars fishtailing a bit off the turns under hard power and acceleration, so I'm sure they're getting it cleaned off a bit.
Averaging just over 122.5 miles an hour with Danny Sullivan still out in front. Rick Mears, who started on the front row with Danny, has dropped steadily backwards and now runs in 5th place with Mario Andretti and Arie Luyendyk closing in and beginning the challenge.
There they go uphill to turn 6. This is a turn that you have to really kind of pick your way through because it is a little bit blind. So the guys, once they settle down and get the car, get the feel of everything, they'll go very quick through there.
The race underway in what should be a very tactical afternoon at Road America. You should get a great idea of how fast this course is. Now on board, looking over the shoulder again of Bobby Rahal. A beautiful scenic run through the countryside, off of the carousel, through the gravel pit. As Danny Sullivan runs out in front, Michael Andretti has moved into 2nd place, and the points leader, Fittipaldi, is 3rd. We're back at the Road America Sports Car Course on board. Al Unser Jr. riding in 4th place now and looking backwards to the Pennzoil machine of Rick Mears as the front of the field for the moment has moved into static positions. No challenges at this second. A.J. Foyt has been given a black flag. They indicate a spray at the back of his car, so he'll be called into the pits. The kart officials will check the car over and make a determination as whether or not it's worthy to continue. Al Unser Jr. runs in 4th.
Yes, Al Unser Jr. is another one to be watched here. He's due for a victory again. He's been running extremely well. Of course, Rick Mears right up behind him. It looks like Rick's closing in on him a little bit.
Rick begins to work down just a bit behind Al Unser Jr. He seems to be faster through this section of the course.
Paul, it's funny. Sometimes when you get the start of a race like this, it takes a few laps for things to settle in.
And Bobby Rahal's pulled to the side of the course, John.
Oh, look at that. This is the 2nd week in a row that he's had problems, and obviously finished, throws the steering wheel over the windshield, and is out of the car.
Rahal was running up in the top 10, though at the bottom in 10th place. He led this event and had it in the bag in 1983, but then he ran out of fuel with just 3.5 laps to go. Mario Andretti went on to win that race. Let's go to the pits. Here's Jack.
Well, Paul, you talked about Rick Mears maybe backing out of the throttle a little bit, maybe a problem. There's no problems. We checked with Roger Penske. They're very concerned about fuel consumption. He said, we've set with Rick a standard pace based upon time around this racetrack. He's adhering to that right now. We think that the race will come to us.
When we talk about the tactics of a race, it's a conversation that comes up every time as we watch Teo Fabi in the Porsche-powered machine coming down behind Scott Pruitt in a battle for 8th place, and we'll keep an eye on that. And there is Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears. That's the fight for 4th place as they continue their fight. We'll be watching both of these, but John, for the moment, while we watch, let's talk about the tactics. Here, you have to make your pit stop dead on the money, and one of the reasons for that is the fact that the road course here is so long, over 4 miles.
Yes, it's 4 miles is a long way around. I can assure you, I ran out of fuel one time on the backside over here, and you don't get towed in. So it's a situation where you've got to make everything count. You've got to stop maybe a little bit early on the first one to find out what the mileage is, so you can get in on the money for the second one, and maybe even make a possible 3rd stop for a splash.
So Rick Mears, that bright yellow car, for the moment at least, is apparently set up at a pace that both he and the Penske team feel is adequate. Look at him move to the inside as he begins a challenge with Al Unser Jr. as they run down to Canada Corner.
It could be that Al Unser Jr. has gotten the word now. Hey, take it easy. Let's see what the fuel's going to be like before we start really racing anymore.
Fuel economy was the talk throughout the paddock area throughout the entire weekend. And one thing that concerned many of these drivers is that it rained yesterday, washed out all but one of the practice sections. Most of the sections were run in the rain, and so no one got a real good handle on what their fuel economy might be. They're finding out right now. Jack Arute alluded at the start of the program to the fact that the Penske car does have an opportunity to check their fuel management in real time by telemetry. Al Unser Alonso Jr. doesn't have that luxury.
No, and that may be a problem before the day is over. You know, they ran in the wet, and you can't really tell anything because you can't run as hard. Now they're running as hard as they possibly can with these cars. That's going to use a lot of fuel because you keep the throttle down a long time.
Let's go to the pits. Here's Gary Gerald.
Paul, we're alongside team manager Barry Green, and this is 2 weeks in a row you've encountered a problem on the radio. Could you hear from Bobby what the problem was?
Well, Gary, it sounds like an engine. You know, he's right out the back of the racetrack right now, and the radios don't pick him up so clearly, but he did say something about an engine. He's out of the car and out of the race. Had a bad run here this weekend. We had a couple of engine failures the first day we were here and didn't qualify very well, so we just got to pack up now and look to get home and clean our act up and do well at Nazareth.
This has really been a great place for Bobby Rahal. He's had terrific finishes in the past, but it's a very short day today, Paul.
Not today, Gary. That car sits empty by the side of the circuit, just off on the grass at Road America. As Alonso Jr. continues to hold off Rick Mears, and from what Roger Penske's team tells us, Rick Mears is just working at a pace that he is comfortable with, and Alonso Jr. seems to be able to run just a little bit ahead of Rick. Again, on the backside of the course, this is where Rick made the try earlier. This time it doesn't seem like he's going to want to make that try.
I don't think he deems it necessary right now. It's an opportunity for him to just test and just run his pace.
Out in front of the field with 6 laps complete right now, at 125 miles an hour, the average speed is Danny Sullivan. He's being chased by Michael Andretti, and then the points leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. We'll be back. The Road America 200. Paul Page with Johnny Rutherford, Jack Arute, and Gary Gerald. Danny Sullivan picked up the lead on the green flag from his pole position. Has led ever since then. Michael Andretti was able to slide up to the front of the field and pick up second place. And Emerson Fittipaldi, the points leader, is running in third, followed by this man, Alonso Jr., who runs in fourth right now. And Rick Mears sits just behind in what should be a very carefully plotted afternoon for all of the teams. Some cars already experiencing problems, though. John Beekes is in the pits, the Monterey, California ARS champion, making some of his first drives in the Indycar now as they work at the back of his machine. They appear that they're going to get that car back into action. And Guido Dacco made a quick pass through the pits as well. So those cars with problems. For the leader, though, it's a good afternoon because on a long course like this, you drive a very long way before you encounter any slower traffic. And that's allowing Danny Sullivan, who is out in front, to stretch his legs. Let's go to the pits now. Here's Jack.
Paul, we talked about A.J. Foyt being black flagged. Well, they've decided not to black flag him. You see, what happened is they thought he was throwing oil out on the racetrack. But as you know, the under tray of a race car has little blocks. It seems that one of those blocks fell off, and now the bottom of the race car is scraping on the racetrack, but to not a serious degree. So that the smoke that we see is coming up from the burnt fiberglass. But they're not concerned about that. They've elected not to bring A.J. Foyt in. He said this is the farthest he's ever started back in a race here, and he says, watch for me to try and come to the front. I'm tired of these road races and looking forward to Nazareth.
So A.J. Foyt with his struggles here today, but he was looking awfully good at Nazareth when they ran the IROC cars there, and he's still got a lot of raciness in him. We take a look at the Fervini car, followed by the Quaker State Porsche, Teo Fabi. The fight there is for 7th place. They've been lined up like this for about 6.5 laps now.
Danny Sullivan has that luxury, as you say, of being out front, and he is not wasting any time. He has pulled out to a pretty comfortable lead and has stretched the field a bit.
Running an average speed over 125.7 miles an hour. The track record here is held by Emerson Fittipaldi from last year at 122 miles an hour. So he is well above the track record. Danny Sullivan beginning now to easily outdistance the rest of the field as he flashes over the line, completing 8 laps and 6 seconds ahead of the second place car of Michael Andretti. We watch Teo Fabi, that green and white number 8 machine.
Yes, you know, that might be a barometer to keep an eye on them because they do have that telemetry system. They are familiar with it. They've used it all year. It's a chance to see just exactly when it comes down to the very end, the bitter end for some, if Teo and the Porsche crew has done their homework and they are going, in fact, to stay right there and ride it out until they get to the finish and have enough fuel.
They continue to work their way around the circuit down toward the first turn once again with Scott Pruitt now beginning to inch up on the back of the Porsche. Danny Sullivan, the leader of the race, has started 7 times here. Those 7 races, 6 times he's led. Sullivan has never won on this circuit. 7th. Pruitt again closes down just a bit. That's Mario Andretti that sits ahead of Luyendyk. Ahead of him is the battle between Rick Mears and Al Unser Jr. Though for the moment, with the exception of Teo's occasional move up to the back of the Provimi car, there is not a lot of conflict on this circuit.
Teo is keeping the pressure on Ari. He's not letting him get away, and he's able to close up. So maybe he's just comfortably riding there, waiting for Ari to make that slip or back up to him so he can have a chance to go by.
And that's part of the game here. This long circuit, and with the fact that fuel can be so critical, you really have to work your way around very, very carefully and just try to stay in touch with the leader. Let's go to the pits and Gary.
Well, this is an unscheduled stop for Derek Haley. He comes in, immediately shuts the motor down. They refuel the car, but this is not a fueling stop. They've got electrical problems. He had been in 10th place. They're going to change one of the ignition or spark box systems here in the right side pod. So this is going to be a time-consuming stop for Derek Haley and his crew. Paul, one other note relating to Emerson Fittipaldi. At the start of this event, we talked about fuel and its importance. Emerson's crew waited a full 30 seconds before they fired the car. Even if they can save a thimbleful of fuel, they think it'll help them. Paul?
Well, the Patrick Racing team, Chip Ganassi in charge of that operation now, being so very careful with fuel as we ride on board with Al Unser Jr. Somewhere ahead there is Fittipaldi, but you can see that little Al is well back from the third place car, which is the Fittipaldi machine. Al Unser Jr. has clear sailing ahead. Rick Mears sits behind little Al. There is Rick coming down the hill right behind little Al, but you can see the leaders are really getting away from the rest of the field.
It's just running a good, steady pace, Paul. That's all that is they're able to, with good handling cars out there with no traffic, be able to just kind of hammer at it and pull away steadily.
One of the faster sections of the course as they climb up toward 190 miles an hour and then come downhill and jump all over the brakes, run down through the gearbox, and then immediately start climbing. Chris Mears, Rick's wife, watches her fifth-place husband right now. Keeps a listen to that radio circuit. In addition to the voice communications now from that Penske machine, they also have telemetry that tells them a great deal about what's going on board that race car. Out in front, Danny Sullivan, the Miller High Life car, continues to lead at Road America. We'll be back. On board with Al Unser Jr., running now in 4th place, looking back to Rick Mears. They've just come up through turn 6, now heading down a very fast section of the course. The next turn for little Al will be off to the left and heading into the carousel as Rick Mears closes in right behind. And this fight continues. This is the action on the circuit right now. Also, we're continuing to track the battle between Ari Luyendyk, Teo Fabi, and Scott Pruitt. Average speed of the race has fallen off just a bit. Danny Sullivan was cutting some laps up above 125 miles an hour. He's averaging right at 122.6 miles an hour thus far. On the circuit, though, it is Rick Mears that continues to worry the back end of Al Unser's car.
Yes, it seems like Al is able to pull away. He's trying to move over to negotiate a pass there, but couldn't quite get it done. It's like little Al sees him and just starts getting in it a little bit harder here and there and opens up a little bit of space. So it's interesting to see this sparring going on.
And it looks like if Rick is going to choose a passing point, it's going to be back there at Canada Corner. He's made several moves on little Al at that point.
That is an extremely good spot because it's wide open. They have a view. You check your mirrors there as you come through that kink. It's a good place to pass, and it wouldn't surprise me.
But here, going into 1, Rick seems to lose some footage to little Al. Is that a product of gearing?
Well, that's very hard to tell. Look here at Teo Fabi trying to make a pass on Ari Luyendyk. He is just all over Ari, and it's interesting to see if he's just sitting there hammering, trying to make him make a mistake. I think it's a situation of one is soft pedaling it. Maybe they don't have the boost quite up, as high, just to save a little bit of fuel, and that would be the difference in 2 cars down a straightaway.
Teo Fabi drops in behind Ari Luyendyk now. He has to get his wings out in clear air just a little bit so he won't be directly behind Luyendyk. Very turbulent back there, but he was able to make a move as they went into 1, but he maintains his position as they come down to the bottom of the hill. Now they climb once again. That's actually a pretty good hill and a blind corner as the Provimi car moves around it. Right behind it is Teo Fabi's Porsche.
Teo is staying glued right to him, so it's not a case of Ari having any strength. He's just kind of holding Teo up at this point.
Teo Fabi continues to pursue Ari Luyendyk. A battle of engine power here. Cosworth on Luyendyks machine, Porsche power in the Fabi car. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Well, here's Derek Daly out of the car. His day is done after a great run here a year ago. What was the problem, Derek?
Something in the engine. It seems like a dropped valve. I began to get a misfire through my earpiece, and then it slowly got worse, dropped the cylinder, so it's definitely terminal.
Quick word about your plans for 1990. Do you know where you're going to be driving?
Exciting. That's all I can tell you.
Well, we'll have to wait and find out. Paul, let's go back to the booth.
Take a look at Danny Sullivan as he works away around the course, and in a moment we'll discuss that, listening to the engine through his earpiece. Most of the drivers do it here, but Danny Sullivan, the Miller High Line car, continues to really set the pace at this circuit. He is unchallenged. He was as far as 6 seconds out in front of the second-place car of Michael Andretti, but Michael has dropped up, closed up to within 3 seconds of Danny. Now, Danny, of course, had that broken arm earlier in the year. We asked him if it was a factor here at Road America.
Well, I wouldn't say that it doesn't have an effect, but I don't think that it gives me a problem, certainly during practice and qualifying. The race, as we did in Mid-Ohio, I ran a little bit of brace around it just to give some additional support because Mid-Ohio is so tough. Here, I don't think I'll do that. I think we'll be all right. But my trainer, Jim Landis, and I've been working, and the arm is still only about 50 to 60% of what the left one is, and since you're right-handed, that's a lot weaker than I want it.
It's not bothering him at the moment. Seems to be working very well. Of course, he's not under the pressure here on this long course that he would be on a number of other road circuits where he really has to rowboat the gearbox around.
No, that's true, and he has some resting time between gear changes because the straightaways are quite long, and when you get in top gear, you can ride along there and rest the arm. So it is not as tough, as you say, as some of the shorter courses.
Danny Sullivan, 6 road course victories thus far in his Indycar career. 4 times he's won on a super speedway. You ride on board with Al Unser Jr. once again, and now he begins to pick up some traffic just ahead as he slams down toward Canada Corner. To negotiate the slower car. Running just ahead, Rick Mears stays glued to the back end.
Yes, you know, we were talking a while ago, Paul, about the driver being able to listen to the engine, and it's nothing more than the old aviation Gosport tube, which is a plastic tube that comes from the engine compartment actually right next to the valve. So it was designed to make so you could hear the valve when it popped off, and it gives you a myriad of noises through this thing that as you're driving along. So if it does backfire, or if it does do something in the engine compartment, you can usually hear it through this plastic tube in your helmet, in your ear.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi now has suddenly come a little bit off the pace, and Al Unser Jr. and Rick Mears have both been able to close down. So that's 3rd place lying just ahead of Little Al, and they're beginning to close on him. Now, these are cars that are relatively equally powered, but Al Unser Jr. is able to close right in behind Fittipaldi, and he goes for the pass on the 2nd straight and gets the job done.
I think that's a tactical move on Emerson's part. I would think so. I would hate at this point to say that, well, he's got a problem with the engine or something, but I think it's a tactical move. He's decided we've run this long, now we better slow it down and see what the fuel looks like on the first pit stop. So that may be now they're all starting to cat and mouse.
For many of the teams, it can be an economy run. Rick Mears closes up behind Fittipaldi, a man who ran out of gas with just 18 laps to go. Of course, it was methanol fuel, 1987, and it knocked him out from 2nd to 18th. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, you talk about the tactics that are going on. One of the major things that's happened here is Michael Andretti has already determined he's going to make it a 3-stop race. Now, the magic number for pit stops is lap 16. They're going to come in on lap 15 and go 3 stops.
You know, I don't think that's going to be the only team that'll do that, Jack. There was a conversation up and down the pit wall. A number of teams are thinking, well, maybe it's just a little safer. We'll stop at 15, we'll stop at 30, we'll splash there at the end.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, it gives you a chance. You hate to run down there and get 1 lap to go and run out of fuel at the back. And
Johnny, I think also what they're concerned about is the fact they know that 2 teams have real-time analysis on board right now, so they've got to play it a little closer to the vest if they don't have the luxury of that information.
Yeah, that's right, Jack. It's they're going to kind of key off of those teams that have that real-time information.
So now Rick Mears makes his closure and picks up Fittipaldi as they go into the first turn. But again, the question is whether or not they're actually racing with one another, or if each of these cars hasn't set their pace and decided to run until at least they find out what the fuel situation is at the end of the first pit stop. We should see pit stops coming up momentarily. Danny Sullivan Road America as the leader, Danny Sullivan, on lap number 15 and dead on the schedule, heads into the pits. Let's go down there now.
Danny Sullivan has brought his car to pit road. The team goes to work. The jack goes up. They're going to change all 4 tires. The most important point to remember right now is that they take a full load of fuel. A long racetrack, so they're going to have to try and make this stop. They've exchanged the tires already. The fuel overflow is completed. They put the car back in gear, and he's off and away.
Well, the fight in the pits, though, as Danny Sullivan is stalled going out, and Michael Andretti picks up the lead coming out of the pits. A good stop for the Newman-Haas crew in 13 seconds. Al Unser Jr., the third-place car, in the pits as well. Everybody, as we take a look from the crew cam, everybody seems to be electing to make their stop on this lap number 15.
That seems like the magic number, and of course, Al Unser Jr. was coming in as Danny Sullivan was leaving, so there was a bit of tag there trying to get around and get started, and Danny got a little bit of a slow start.
And there is where the pit crew is so critical. It can really make a difference in the race. The Penske team got Rick Mears out and rolling ahead of Al Unser Jr., so Mears is now ahead on the course, and Emerson Fittipaldi rolls out as well. So at lap number 15, a fairly conservative position. Many of the cars, the leaders certainly, have been in and out of the pits now.
Pit crews are so critical under this sort of a circumstance because they can make or break you. It's just that simple.
Well, a crew certainly can make up hundreds of feet on the racetrack, and when a driver can spend 5, 10, 15 laps just to move up a few feet, and then the crew can suddenly propel him theoretically several hundred feet ahead on the course with a good stop just by picking up a few seconds, it really makes a difference. So Michael Andretti moves into the lead here at Road America. Danny Sullivan drops back into second place as the leaders appear to stop just a bit early. They seem to have been able to go as far as 17 laps, but everyone was playing it close to the vest.
Boy, they were watching one another. When the first guy made the break for the pits, everybody seemed like came in, and the radios were certainly humming. I bet they were tubes were hot when Danny came in. They said, hit the pits.
Well, Michael Andretti is out as the leader of the race. Right behind him is Ari Lyondike and Teo Fabi, but those cars have yet to stop. And in fact, they both peel off into the pits now, so they were second and third for the moment with Michael as the leader. But now the Lyondike car and the Fabi car both head for the pits. Fabi is having to clamp down on the brakes a little bit hard as he rolls down to the Porsche pit. He had to stop for a second behind Ari Lyondike. Let's go to Gary.
Well, we're watching the team that was a winner a week ago in action at Mid-Ohio, here now at Elkhart Lake. And Teo Fabi waiting as they change the rubber around, getting that full load of fuel. We've talked about the importance off the jack in just under 15 seconds as we go to Jackaroo.
Gary, we're also taking a look at the completion of the pit stop by Scott Pruitt. He took on 4 tires, and he's off and away.
So on lap number 16, the second set of stops by those cars that elected not to stop on 15 have been completed. And as a result of that, we have seen stops by all of the front runners in this race. And also as a result, by good work on that Newman-Haas team, Michael Andretti picks up the lead here at Road America.
Yes, you'll notice that these cars leaving the pits are on sticker tires, we call them. That is brand new tires. None of the teams had the opportunity during the inclement weather to scuff the tires, so they're all having to race on sticker tires.
One of the Horton safety team bringing the Kevin Cogan car around on the road back toward the pits. The fact that they're on fresh tires that have never been scrubbed in with the new Goodyear radials, does that make much of a difference, John?
Well, it can and it can't. You know, it's a situation where if it's very abrasive out there and there are problems, then it could create some temperatures that you wouldn't want to race with.
Mario Andretti rides just in front of Al Unser Jr. as they work their way around the course. And little Al closing in on the veteran Andretti. Out in front is his son Michael that leads this race. Kevin Cogan, the report there, ran out of fuel on the circuit. And as you saw, it's one very long way to get back to the pits. There is Kevin Cogan under tow as they dice their way around that Horton safety vehicle. On board with Al Unser Jr. We'll be back. We're back at Road America. Paul Page with Johnny Rutherford, Jack Arute, and Gary Gerald. Michael Andretti with the first pit stop has picked up the lead of the race. Danny Sullivan with the stops complete slides into second place, followed by his teammate Rick Mears, then Mario Andretti, and then Al Unser Jr. But Michael Andretti really has a tremendous advantage. That's a full 12 seconds that you just saw being reeled off there. Michael really has pulled out a lead.
He really has. His car is operating once again, and he is where he wants to be.
You know, I think he is operating at the top of his form right now. He's one of the finest drivers in the series. He's really matured tremendously in the past year. Let's go to the pits again. Jack Arute.
Well, Paul, during that series of pit stops, Danny Sullivan came in a little earlier than he had anticipated. And one of the reasons why is, as we said, this real-time analysis computerization that the Penske team's using, they really weren't all that certain that he was going to be able to get the one additional lap. Well, lo and behold, after they checked everything out after the pit stop, they discovered through the computerization that they indeed could have gone one additional lap and hit the marks the way they had hoped they would. So they're very disappointed so far because they came in one lap too soon. Let's check in with Gary Gerald up on pit road.
Well, Jack, in the Emerson Fittipaldi pit, a quick word with Morris Nunn, the chief engineer. Fuel is the primary concern, and yes, they did come in a lap sooner than they had anticipated. They had also been concerned about setup because of the lack of time for Emerson in the car yesterday. They didn't make changes on this last pit stop, so they think that the characteristics, handling-wise, are okay. But that fuel thing is just a giant shadow. It looms over everyone, and the Fittipaldi crew openly says, yes, we're very concerned after coming in a lap early.
So, Johnny Rutherford, what does that do to you as a driver? Can you actually set up on a pace? Can they tell you, I want to see this next lap in a minute and 22 seconds, and you consistently drive that?
You really have to kind of sort that out with your car, Paul. You've got to know what your car is doing, what it's capable of, and if they come on the radio and say, look, you've got to take it easy or we're going to run out of fuel before this is over, then you know that you can short shift it a little bit, not get the RPM. Maybe kind of coast down into a corner, ease the throttle back off, and kind of coast down into a corner and save a little bit of fuel, because that's what it's going to take if they in fact are telling you, hey, you're going to run out if you don't slow down.
But then what happens when we see a tempting situation like we do now with Emerson Fittipaldi running in 8th place but closing down on Ari Lyondike? Isn't the drive just to throttle a little bit harder, go ahead and run the shift all the way out and try and get past him?
Well, it can be, but that's where your concentration has to come to play. You've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to watch things. You've got to manage that car so that you do get the fuel mileage. If you don't, then you're going to be parked on the backside out of fuel before this thing is over.
And at this point, Emerson Fittipaldi cannot afford that, either in the race or in his battle to be the Indycar World Champion. Now, he is closing down on Ari Lyondike. Just ahead of Lyondike is Teo Fabi. So it is now a 3-car battle for 6th place, with the Porsche leading this small serial as they come on to the second straight in a very fast portion of the race course.
This has almost become like an endurance race, where you don't have to run a million miles an hour. These guys are all pacing themselves. They have word now from the pits. They've made their pit stop. They've got the word, hey, you're going to have to slow down or we're right on schedule. Just keep doing what you're doing. So it's interesting to watch.
And for some of the teams equipped with the more higher tech equipment, well, they have that real-time evaluation they can do, and then others have computer systems that they have managed to read out from, and they can see a display up on their LCD display on their dash console. For other teams, it's the old system of just measuring what's left in the fuel tank.
Yeah, but we also saw that the Penske crew miscalculated by 1 lap. So there's the other side of the coin.
So sometimes you can have too much technology. Out in front, it is Michael Andretti, and there is Sandy Andretti as she watches her husband navigate around this course. A lady who, while she supports her husband thoroughly, she was his childhood sweetheart. She never knew him as the great Michael Andretti. She just knew him as Michael. She's not as impressed with racing as some of the rest of the wives. We'll be back. We're back at Road America, where Teo Fabi has now closed up and begun to chase Al Unser Jr. So that battle that had developed for 6th place between Fabi, Lyondike, and Fittipaldi has now closed in. And just ahead of Fabi is the Al Unser Jr. car. So back again in contact for a number of cars on the circuit, and most of the drivers playing a very careful game, passing only as they can for the most part. They seem content to sit, watch one another, and try and figure out how to get the fuel tank to the end of this race.
Well, that's what the game is. You've got to be able to finish first. You first finish. And obviously they're all playing the cat and mouse, working one another, just sitting there doing their thing, managing their own race car, listening to the radio, to the crew say, okay, we're right on schedule, just run it to the next pit stop, then we'll see where we are for the next one.
Well, the slower car lying just ahead, Teo Fabi, is able to close up just a little bit more as they both try to navigate around the Toshiba car of Randy Lewis. Let's go to Gary Gerald.
Earlier, Jack showed us the telemetry system that the Porsche team is utilizing here to keep a close eye on their fuel economy. Derek Walker, we asked him quickly. He says, yes, we think we got a distinct advantage because only 2 cars made it to lap 16. That means everybody except those 2 cars will have to make a third stop. They also made a slight rear wing adjustment to reduce drag to give them a little better fuel-efficient mileage. Now, as we swing over here toward Al Unser Jr.'s crew, we talked to Rick Gallis very briefly. He said, yeah, we had to come in on target, but this is definitely a 3-stop race for us right now. This is really fascinating strategy that's going on down here now, Paul.
Well, so Gary Gerald, is what Derek Walker is saying is that they're going to go it as a 2-stop race?
That's the indication that we have at this point.
All right, well, on board with Al Unser Jr., you saw a glimpse of the Italian Teo Fabi there as well. That's the battle, Fabi and Unser, and it is a fight for 5th place as they close down now on Mario Andretti. It is Michael Andretti that leads here at Road America. Danny Sullivan, the pole sitter and the early leader, rides in 2nd place. 22 laps are now complete. But on this circuit, so very long, so very fast, what about the opportunities to close, to pass, and get by? That was the question for Little Al.
There's more opportunities to pass here, yes, than Mid-Ohio. But you have to be working good enough and all that. And whenever a driver makes a mistake, you're going to pass them. And so rather it be at Mid-Ohio or Long Beach or Toronto or Road America, you're going to get the guy wherever you can. And so you know, this racetrack is just like Mid-Ohio in the aspect of you can't make any mistakes or you're going to get passed. And
so Al Unser Jr. works around in 5th place right now. When he refers to a mistake, Johnny Rutherford, it's rather subtle.
Well, yes, it can be, and it's one where you maybe get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somebody can put the squeeze on you. You know, get a chance to put a wheel in there, and you've got to give them the benefit so they make the move, out-brake you down into a turn. You don't know how hard they're going to go until suddenly they're up beside you on the brakes very hard. So it's a situation where you got to run, do what you can every second you're out there.
Is it better to look ahead of you and stay away from looking at the mirrors to see who's sitting behind you? Do you become obsessed with that car that's chasing you?
No, you really, I don't. You tend to drive your own race, and they're behind you, so that's their problem. But on some occasions, you know, when you're running along and you check the mirrors and you continue on, and maybe you're not on the pace of the leaders, you see a guy in the mirror. He didn't fall out of an airplane and just land there. You know, he's there and he's moving, so you give him the benefit of the doubt in one turn to see if he takes advantage of it. If he does, then he's faster and he goes on.
Al Unser Jr. continues to navigate the circuit. The Scotty Brayton Amway car. They both get around it, both Fabi and Al Unser Jr., as Scotty pulls to the left and gives way up through Thunder Valley once again as the fight continues to work around this serpentining circuit. Al Unser Jr. in 5th, Teo Fabi in 6th.
Something that he gave Fabi, took advantage there and used Scott Brayton to make a close-in on Al Jr., so he's getting closer.
Michael Andretti, 18 and a half seconds out in front of the 2nd place car of Danny Sullivan. And Rick Mears lies now in 3rd place. In 4th place is Mario Andretti, just ahead of this fight between Teo Fabi and Al Unser Jr. Michael Andretti has this race under control. He took the lead when it was given to him by his pit crew on the first stops. Now, let's take a look at this track fact. This track fact is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. Here's Gary Gerald.
Prior to the start of every PPG IndyCar World Series event, each team is allocated a specific amount of fuel so that every crew chief and every driver knows that if you don't maintain at least 1.8 miles per gallon in fuel mileage, you simply won't have enough fuel to go the distance. Now, how do the crews keep tabs on the fuel that has been consumed? The most sophisticated method is through onboard computers linked to telemetry equipment, and only 2 teams have that capability. The Porsche team for Teo Fabi, the Penske team for both Rick Mears and Danny Sullivan. There, a crew member in the pits is able to read firsthand just how many gallons have been consumed and how many remain in the car. If a driver has a fuel management system on his engine, and about half the field has that capability, then he gets a digital readout in his dash. It tells him how many gallons have been consumed of the 40 that he carries on board. Now, every driver also has a fuel warning light. There's a float system or a sensor in the fuel cell. When the fuel load gets light, that light in the cockpit comes on. That's your warning that you've got to get to the pits and get another load of fuel. Then there's also the time and true tested way of doing it here with a sight gauge that everybody has in their fuel tank. You see that calibrations have been made, and if you look in here and see that the fuel level is right here, your indication that you've got 40 gallons left in this tank. This is not nearly as precise as some of the other ways, and if you miscalculate here by as much as even 1 gallon, it could be disastrous on a circuit that's as long as this one.
We're back at Road America with 25 laps, the halfway point, now complete. A 50-lap race for the Indy cars. Michael Andretti is the leader of the race. The only thing that seems to have changed is he has picked out another full second ahead of the second-place car, Danny Sullivan. We take a look at the rundown through the field just 5 laps ago. Nothing substantially has changed in this rundown. There are 10 cars now running on the lead lap. So from Michael Andretti all the way back to Raul Boisel, who has worked his way up through the field, they are all running together on the lead lap, the halfway point, the 200-mile distance here at Road America. Al Unser Jr. continues to move up on Mario Andretti, and right behind little Al is Teo Fabi in the Porsche-powered car. So Al Unser Jr. now closing just a bit on Mario.
This game that they're all playing, it seems, was really challenging or racing that hard. I'm not sure that Fabi couldn't just pull right ahead, but I'm also not sure that little Al couldn't just run off and leave him. So this makes it a whole different ballgame.
What about the pace of Michael Andretti? He's averaging 123 miles an hour. That's a full mile an hour above the race record to this point last year, and he's had some laps up at 125.
You want to make any bets? I'll tell you what. I would say at that pace, they've got to be making fuel somewhere, because that's going to be awfully quick, and it's going to be tough to go the distance. If he does, then they have got it figured better than everyone else.
The question is the calculations of the Newman-Haas team, and have they made their calculations correctly so they can authorize the kind of pace we're seeing? One of the owners of that team, Paul Newman, incredibly skillful race driver in his own right, as he watches his driver Michael Andretti work around this track.
It's really hard to think, Paul, that everybody else has to slow down and one car can show that much muscle. So that's the only thing I'm basing my theory on, is the fact that everyone else is kind of taking it easy and conserving, trying to do it. Michael appears to be faster. Maybe it's just that he looks faster because everyone else is slowed down.
Well, he certainly is smooth. There's no question about that. In just that conversation, he has managed to pull another full second and a half ahead of the second-place car of Danny Sullivan. He is now running 22 seconds out in front of Danny Sullivan.
All season, his car has looked like it works extremely stronger, better than most anyone else. At Detroit, his car was just absolutely flawless looking around the race course, and he led until he had the problem. But today, he's doing the same thing. The car looks extremely good, so it's working well for him, and that makes up a lot of difference. You can put laps on the field.
And of course, if nothing would change in that battle for the PPG championship, if they would finish as they are right now, and Michael goes on to win, he'll pull to within 14 points of Emerson Fittipaldi. They would end the race with Emo with 160, Rick Mears with 147, and Michael Andretti with 146. Michael Andretti is still out in front. We'll be back. We're back at Road America. Paul Page with Johnny Rutherford, Gary Gerald, and Jack Arute as the fight continues to work around the circuit. Mario Andretti is running in 4th place, followed by Al Unser Jr. and Teo Fabi. They just worked around Didier Tay's STP Tune-Up Masters car, who is running down in the field right now. Tays is running in 12th place and is a lap off. And here comes Teo Fabi as he moves to the outside. Al Unser Jr. ducks over to the inside as they continue to fight.
Boy, now there's a dogfight. They're obviously flexing muscles now, trying to get that advantage of the position so they can get in for their pit stop. They're coming up on pit stops again, Paul, and it's going to be very critical. And I'm sure that Bobby would like to get ahead of Al so he doesn't have to slow down for him going in, because he is pitted downstream.
And as the cars lighten up, here comes Mario Andretti into the pits. Michael Andretti cut that last lap at 126 miles an hour. Here's Jack.
Mario Andretti is the first of the leaders to pit. He comes in and takes on 4 tires. Now they're trying to stagger their stops. They've already elected to go 3 stops here. They've completed their work while he was running 4th. He lights up the tires and he's off and away.
Good stop for Mario Andretti as he roars out of the pits. The crew standing by for the arrival of Michael Andretti, who should come in on the next lap. If they run in, look at Paul Newman. Boy, he's pleased with that stop.
Boy, that was a dandy. 11 and a half, 12 seconds. That's what you've got to have.
I tell you what, PLN is one whale of a race fan, too. I love to watch him in the pit.
Oh, yes.
He's cheering and waving the cars on, and when the cars break, he's just as disappointed.
He can really put on a sad face.
Michael Andretti, factor on this course now, as his dad Mario is back into the action after his second stop of the race. That stop coming on the 28th lap. The rest of the leaders should make their stop on the next lap if you were working with the old conventional system. Here comes Michael Andretti. He roars down into the pits, and once again we go to the pits.
Michael Andretti comes on to pit road, and believe it or not, gentlemen, throughout the first half of this race, he's been short shifting. He radioed in that so far everything's running very well. They've changed tires. They're taking on the fuel. They had 47 gallons remaining in the tank before this stop. As Danny Sullivan goes by to take the lead, Andretti is off and away.
So with Danny Sullivan roaring out of the pits just behind him, there comes Michael Andretti. Danny Sullivan keeps the car out yet another lap. Michael Andretti, now running on a full tank of fuel, is about 280 pounds heavier than the Sullivan car, and Sullivan should be able to pull out just a bit. But will it be enough to keep the lead?
Well, the word we had that he's short shifting, so the car is working extremely good.
Al Unser Jr. now roars down the pits. He runs back in 4th place as he comes in for his stop. Let's go to Gary.
Car up on the jacks, Paul. They have a little difficulty on the left rear, but they got it off, and they're making the 4-tire change. And, of course, that ever-precious fuel. What a commodity it is here at this circuit. Into the car, now rolling off the jacks, but rolling very slowly. He started to move in 15 seconds, but he lost a couple of seconds before he got it fully engaged and pulled away. Paul?
And, of course, you saw that entire stop from the point of view of a crewman. See how fast they changed those tires. As Al Unser Jr. now, and you can see the flash of white on the fronts especially that shows you that he's come out on brand new tires. So it'll take just a little bit for them to come up to temperature. And there is Mario Andretti closing in right behind Al Unser Jr., the other car that made his stop. So little Al's team got him in and out pretty quick.
Yes, it was an excellent stop. The sticker tires, though, takes a little bit, 2 or 3 turns to get the things worked up. Here we see Mario moving over, getting the advantage, trying to make the pass going down into turn 3.
Well, trying. I'm not sure the advantage is there yet as they come very close, getting around that Station 5 corner and climb the hill now, up the hill, and make the blind corner under the bridge as Mario Andretti maintains that position out in front.
That was a masterful move. You saw he knew just exactly what he had to do and where he was going. When he went in there, he had the advantage on the outside. Al gave him the benefit. That's the way it turns out.
30 laps are now complete, the 50-lap scheduled distance at Road America. Danny Sullivan picked up the lead of the race on the second stop, very much in the way that Michael Andretti picked the lead up from Sullivan on the first stop. Those have been the leaders of the race to this point. And Danny Sullivan, on the last pass, passed the timing traps at 5 seconds over the second-place car of Michael Andretti. Not nearly enough to hold off charging Andretti. Let's go to the Penske pits again, Jack Arute.
And Paul, Rick Mears has brought his car onto pit road, the first of the Penske teammates to pit. Now their computer is reading out that they're getting approximately approximately an average combined cautions and green 2 miles to the gallon. They have completed their tire work, and they've now dropped the jacks, and he is off and away in a very quick stop.
Rick Mears, the Pennzoil car, back into the fight.
If that's the case, they're making 2 miles to the gallon, then it's going to be a chance they'll run very hard at the end.
All right, this is the crew cam again as the entire team gets together to converse and decide what they're going to do about the situation with Little Al. Did they? Well, now instead of let's get a cool drink. We've done our stop.
Now it's our pit stop time.
I'd say the reaction to that is casual. They decided it's okay, John.
They've done their job.
So the Gallows team seems for the moment to relax. The job is back in the hand of Al Unser Jr.
Getting back to that, what I was talking about a while ago, if they're making 2 miles to the gallon, then that means they have plenty left at the end, if they've calculated right, for a charge. So the end of this race really should be something if we can get all of the leaders together.
And Emerson Fittipaldi, who runs back in 6th place right now. If the race ended right now, there's the way the points would look. I referred to this just a few moments ago, and as you can see, it would tighten up considerably. In one weekend, 22 points are available, 20 for the win, 1 for the pole, and 1 for leading the most laps, so it would become a very tight point race as we head to the next stop 2 weeks from now at Nazareth, Pennsylvania. An oval that is often driven like a road course. Track that really tends to neutralize any advantage that either a road course driver or an oval expert would have. It's a good battling ground for everyone.
It really is. It's an extremely fast race course for a 1 mile track. And you're busy constantly, so it's whoever gets the advantage of getting the car working. Got an MO going to the pits.
So the Patrick team now waits for the arrival of the current points leader, Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to Gary.
Well, we await along with the crew now for the familiar colors. Now it eases into our view. He's right there on target. The man with so much on his mind this weekend. An ill teenage daughter in Miami who has undergone surgery Friday night and Saturday morning. A championship in the balance, trying to protect a 30-point lead. Waiting to come down off the jacks. The tire changes have been made. These tires are not scuffed. Just under 16 seconds for Emerson Fittipaldi, and the Patrick team seems to be very happy with the efficiency of that stop, Paul.
Well, you can hear the applause around Gary Gerald as here comes Fittipaldi back into the fight, and he slides in behind a battle between Scott Pruitt and Fabrizio Barbazza. Danny Sullivan is still out in front. Michael Andretti now lies second. We'll be back. Jack, we're back at Road America. Paul Page with Johnny Rutherford, Gary Gerald, and Jack Aroots. Michael Andretti is the leader of the race now. Danny Sullivan, while we were away, made a routine stop, came in, fueled the car. The service was without any problem whatsoever. Rolled back into the action, but rolled back after Michael Andretti was able to get past. Now he is on the backside of the course and trying to hold off faster for the moment Arie Luyendyk, but Arie has not yet stopped, and so the car is a little lighter and therefore a little bit faster.
Yes, that's a situation where Sullivan's getting a feel of the car again with a full load of fuel and new tires, getting them scuffed and up temperature.
Let's go to the pits. Here's Jack Aroots.
Well, Paul, what the team has been doing, Penske's team led by Danny Sullivan, who's running so well, is they've been trying to check in with their real-time analysis again. And one of the things that they think they now can do, because they were averaging 1.96 miles per gallon, they think they can go the distance on only 2 stops. It's still very close, but they've got the luxury of changing their mind because they get the real-time read back throughout the race. Let's check in with Gary Gerald. Gary?
Down off the jacks in just about 16 and a half seconds is Teo Fabi, and he's one of those 2 men who was hoping to make this a 2-stop race. They lasted through to the prescribed 33rd lap. That was the target that they wanted. They're also happy with this stop, Paul.
Well, Teo Fabi had moved into 2nd place behind Michael Andretti, but Michael, with this stop, once again has a stupendous lead over the now 2nd place car of Danny Sullivan.
Yeah, I wonder if Gary Gerald can find out from the Porsche team exactly what kind of mileage they might be getting from their car.
Well, as Gary Gerald goes over to talk to Derek Walker, the team manager on that team, consult with Peter Parrott, the crew chief, and perhaps we can get that answer as we continue to watch on the circuit itself Danny Sullivan. And just behind him is Arie Luyendyk. Just ahead of him is Raoul Boisel. Boisel is running in 11th place, 1 lap off of the pace. Arie Luyendyk is still running up in the leaders serial, but has has yet to make his pit stop.
Yeah, that's for a position. If he can get by Sullivan, then that would give him the position, and he would be solely in third place. So they're racing for it out there when they get close like this. But I don't think it's a matter of really pushing yet. They'll wait till they decide whether they're going to make a third pit stop or do that, and then it'll be go for it.
They move around the Jeff Wood car, that number 56 yellow and blue machine. And everyone gets safely around. Wood, a very accomplished open-wheel racer. 9 cars remain on the leader lap. And, of course, at the front of the battle is Michael Andretti, who is 34 seconds out in front of the second-place car of Danny Sullivan. Arie Luyendyk still runs in that third position. In fourth place is Teo Fabi. But here is Luyendyk as he makes his second stop now on lap number 34 and will relinquish third place.
That was a tight situation where he had to pit right in front of the other car. The crew chief there, they want him moved back. He was out of position. Because he had to pull in so sharply, there was another car that came in, the DDT is moving in. He didn't get close enough. They're really having to, he's losing valuable time here because they're jockeying so they can get hooked up with the fuel system.
He was out of reach of the hoses, so the Simon team had to push the car back and then roll it forward.
Yeah, and they had the starter ready too, so I don't know if the car is dead or what, but it's really costing him a lot of precious time.
Well, we talked earlier about how the pit stop can work to your advantage. When it goes bad, it can go very bad, and for Arie Luyendyk, 37 seconds, just a little too long in the pits.
That was a bad one. That's really going to hurt him.
So Arie Luyendyk with a great deal of time and distance to make up. The leader is Michael Andretti. Second place is Danny Sullivan. And look at Rick Mears and Teo Fabi go at it in a fight for fourth place.
Yes, Teo was pushing and braking very, very hard down into that turn. Here we have a shot of him over Al Unser Jr. Al Unser's trying to go by. There must be something wrong with either that or he's missing gears or something's going wrong because that's unusual.
Might just be the tight fight as Rick Mears was able to pick up a position on that fight. And Rick should now move up into fourth place. That'll be good for Mears as here comes Al Unser Jr. trying to get past and re-engage in the fight that he had going with Mears until Mears was able to get past Teo Fabi. But whatever it might have been on the Porsche car, Teo seems to have solved it for the moment and begins now to work away from Al Unser Jr. At the front of the field with a 35-second lead, running a record pace, is Michael Andretti. We're back at Road America, the Road America 200. Al Unser Jr. works his way around the course as he tries to play catch-up to Rick Mears now after getting around Teo Fabi, but there is some concern in his pit about fuel. And with that fuel situation, too, Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, and if we mentioned there was a concern, well, this may be it right there. Al Unser Jr. slows down, and he is on the backside of the circuit. He's a long way from the pit.
Yes, that is a problem for him right there. The crew is on the radio listening to what he's saying. Obviously, he's coasting.
With the crew cam, you got an idea what it was like in the pits. Here's Gary.
Well, we'll reach in here, Paul, and see. Rick, are you hearing anything on the radio?
What happened to the car? We don't know what it is.
Not a fuel situation. Well, that's the word. It's quick, and we were hung up on some equipment, but I think I heard him say no fuel. Something happened with the car, Paul, and they don't know what it is.
Well, they're off the side of the course. The corner workers, all volunteers here, several hundred of them, right on top of the car, asking what's wrong. They lean into the cockpit, and little Al says, don't worry about it.
What he's doing is talking on the radio with Rick Gallus, and the corner workers invariably come up and think you're talking to them, and they say, what? And you're just saying, he's saying, no, I'm just talking on the radio, you know, and it's a bit of miscommunications there, but he's carrying on a conversation with Rick saying, I don't know what it was, it felt like this. There, the wheel comes over the windshield, it's done for the day.
And he's in a part of the course where radio communications isn't that good. Michael Andretti now using every inch of the circuit as he works his way around and puts yet another lap in the record books and at record pace over 123, nearly 123 and a half miles an hour. The record 122.2 set last year by Emerson Fittipaldi. Of course, Michael Andretti, after winning 2 consecutive races this year, has continued to finish at the top of the field. He's really on a roll.
I think within the team, for sure, I think everybody just, everybody's up a lot more, and the psychological effect, I think, is very good. And it seems like when you get that ball rolling, sometimes it's easier to keep it rolling. And, that's what we're trying to do. We're We've been pretty competitive the last few races. With a little luck, we might have even won Pocono. So we're very much alive. We're still running up front, and we're going to try to keep that ball rolling here.
Michael really does have that Tavlin Kmart car doing a tremendous job. He's able to carry this car very quickly.
Michael has matured as a race driver so much this year, Paul. He's so smooth. He's calculated. He is going to be a tough customer in years to come.
I don't know how you can say that, because you and I and Gary and Jack were involved in a radio-controlled car race with Mario and Michael here, and I didn't see a controlled, mature Michael Andretti at that point.
That's a different kind of race.
Of course, Jack Arute was less controlled. He picked my car up and ran off.
There was a lot of skullduggery going on there. I still don't know how you won.
Well, skillful driving. So we take a look at Michael Andretti working his way around the circuit and anticipating, in the tactics of this race, a stop for fuel. They'll try and top this car off. 37 laps are complete. The distance, scheduled distance, is 50 laps. We've had no full course cautions. Danny Sullivan led in the early part. Then Michael Andretti picked up the lead on a stop. Then Danny Sullivan picked up the lead again. And then Michael moved back to the front. And now Michael Andretti on lap number 38 heads down to the pits for what should be fuel only. Let's go to Gary.
We're checking on Michael Andretti's stop. It's going to be more than fuel because it takes longer for the fuel to go in. They're going to change tires as well. Now, they only had 20 gallons of fuel in the tank when they started this stop, as he's off and away. A quick check of the tank shows that they have a little bit left in the tank, so if they have to, they can come back in. Let's check in with Gary Jarrett.
Over here in the Al Unser Jr. pit, that discouraging process of taking the equipment down and starting to pack it up is underway. One other word in the radio, Rick Gallus said it may have been something in the rear end. That seems to be the culprit that has ended the day for Al Unser Jr. Paul?
A little Al out of the race. And the Gallus team sets their sights on 2 weeks from now at Nazareth, Pennsylvania International Raceway. Danny Sullivan climbed the hill just as Michael Andretti was coming out of the pits, so Michael was able to work a substantial lead on Sullivan. The stop, no factor. A good stop, just over 11 seconds. You take a look now in the unoccupied car of Al Unser Jr. It sits by the side of the course as little Al is out and Michael is still. We're back at Road America. Emerson Fittipaldi, the 20 car, works his way around the track. He's still running in the points, back in 6th place. And Emerson has displayed a hesitancy to come up and charge with the rest of the field. They seem content just to pick up points as they move toward the end of the season and a possible Indycar championship for Fittipaldi. The leader of the race is the number 6 car, the Texaco machine of Michael Andretti. He runs out in front of Danny Sullivan by 8 seconds after that stop. Sullivan was able to close while Michael was sitting in the pits, but once Michael moved back into the action, the pace came up once again, and Sullivan now has his job cut out to try and catch Michael Andretti. 3rd place is Sullivan's teammate Rick Mears. 4th is Teo Fabi. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Paul, remember before that last stop by Michael Andretti, we told you he had approximately 20 gallons of fuel in the tank. Well, now they took on fuel, they filled it all the way up, and just to give you an idea of how much they have left in their tank here on pit road, we took some water and put it in a 6-gallon bucket. There's approximately 2 inches here. This is about how much fuel they have left. That would get you around about a half a lap here at Road America, so really it's useless to them unless he runs out of fuel somewhere on this side of the racetrack.
And of course, if he runs out of fuel and won it just that much, it would be a terrible disappointment.
It really would, because that means he could leave the pits and go halfway around to the back side of the course, which is way over there, and stop.
So Michael Andretti is out in front of the field a full 8 seconds. Then Rick Mears, then Teo Fabi, then Emerson Fittipaldi in 5th. Mario Andretti lies in 6th. Then Ari Lyondike, followed by Scott Pruitt, Raul Boisel. John Jones, the Canadian from Thunder Bay, is up running in 10th place. Didier Taze in the Tune-Up Masters car in 11th. Fabrizio Barbazza in the Arciero machine in 12th, followed by the Amway car of Scott Brayton, the Toshiba machine of Randy Lewis. Jeff Wood sits back in 15th, and Ludwig Heimrath Jr. in the Mackenzie car in 16th place. Let's go to Gary Jarrett.
Paul, in the Porsche pit with Derek Walker, you're one of the teams now that has the shot at making it in 2 stops. How comfortable are you on this fuel situation?
Yeah, we don't think it's any problem making it in 2 stops. No.
Now, what kind of mileage are you getting?
We're around 175 to 18, 1778.
So it's close. Have you got fuel in the tank if you need it?
Yeah, we've got a couple of gallons left, but I don't think we're going to need it.
Now, last week it was a 3-stop race, and that worked out brilliantly for you. This week, you may be one of the only teams that can do it in 2.
We may be, but I don't know if that's going to be good enough today, but we'll certainly give it a try.
Have you had to consciously have Teo dial back and really reduce the way he attacks the course to save fuel?
No, right from the start we realized that the engine was set up correctly, so we didn't have to do that. We've been at race pace the whole race, so we're really getting good mileage.
That telemetry system giving you a big advantage here?
Yeah, it's working like a dream. We just know exactly where we are, so it's a big advantage for us.
Oh, there's a happy man right here, I think.
Well, Teo Fabi works his way around the track in 4th place, and of course with that computerized fuel management system that the Porsche has with the special electronics, you can set the pace that you want, and the race driver just simply drives as fast as the system will allow him to go. Michael Andretti picked up another second over the second-place car of Danny Sullivan, now runs 7.5 seconds. Out in front, they're averaging just over 122 miles an hour. We're back at the Road America 200 with 9 laps to go, and we watch 2 world champions work their way around the track. Emerson Fittipaldi, a 2-time world champion, in fact, wrapped up his first world championship this month in 1972. Right behind him is Mario Andretti as they fight around the circuit. The fight is for 5th place, and we take a look 1 lap ago at the rundown after 40 laps of competition. They were averaging 122.9 miles an hour. That is a record pace. Emerson Fittipaldi was averaging 122.2 at this point 1 year ago. So Michael Andretti, with a blistering pace, is moving around this circuit. He has made all of his pit stops now, as has his father Mario, and they can sprint to the finish of this race. Danny Sullivan should have a little fuel left back in his fuel tank, but he will try and continue in the action and go for the checkered flag as well. He now races just 6 seconds behind Michael Andretti. And you heard Derek Walker report on the Porsche car of Teo Fabi. They feel that they can go to the finish too, but they will have to run 17 laps to make it to the finish without fuel. So fuel's still a question here, and the tactics of this race have played out very, very well. Michael Andretti, there he is, running 124.7 miles an hour during that last lap.
Did you see him throw away the tear-off there? He had a shield, one of the Lexan shields on his face shield, and he popped it off so he'd have a clear view. So obviously he's sitting out there kind of cruising right now with a comfortable.
Now the battle continues for 5th place between Mario and Emerson Fittipaldi, and Mario closes down trying to catch Fittipaldi. 2 absolute road course masters. And look at this as Fittipaldi heads for the pits. Mario Andretti streams past, and the Patrick Racing team is going to have to top off the car of Emerson Fittipaldi. Let's go to Gary.
Now, once again, we watched the former 2-time world champion come in and hit the marks. They showed tires, but they won't change tires. It's fuel only, and we hear that they're telling Emerson on the radio moments ago that once he gets this fuel, he can go racing. They think they've got enough to push it now. Let's go to Jack Arute in the Penske pit.
Well, Gary, one team that's sure they don't have enough fuel to continue is right behind me. That's Rick Mears. Now, he's embroiled in that points hunt. You know, he's looking for valuable points. Roger Penske is going to bring him in the late stages here for a fuel and go. Now, his teammate, Danny Sullivan, who's not in the hunt for points this year, they think, as we've said, that they can go the distance. But talk about irony. They came in, remember, 1 lap earlier than they had hoped to during their first pit stop. That may cause them to come back in for another splash of fuel before this race is over. They're going to close the gap on Michael Andretti because they feel Michael cannot go the distance full bore, even though he's been short shifting. And then, if they have to, they'll come onto pit road. But that miscue could cost them the race, the Sullivan people, that is.
And of course, how does that figure into the championship, Johnny Rutherford? Well, Danny Sullivan can only take points away from Rick Mears. He can't figure into the crown this year. He's out of the numbers right now. But if he would score well, that only erodes Rick's position. Michael Andretti, well, Sullivan can go out and be the rabbit and try to pressure Michael.
Well, that's true. Oh, we've got a car off of the course. It's
Barbaza.
Barbaza, yes. He slipped there and got off. You know, the only thing I can say is so much for real-time computerism as far as it goes. I guess maybe it's still too new to the team to have had the thing really sorted out or figured out. And, you know, there again, you see both sides of it. Guys that are figuring with pencil, guys that are doing it with a computer, and there's no set way that it's good.
Barbaza, the 12th car, was running 12th, maintained 12th, despite that off-course excursion. John, you know, you talk about looking for a ride these days. Would we be smarter to find us an old car with an old magneto and no computer chips on the thing at all?
Well, I tell you what, sometimes you wish for that, especially if you're Sullivan or somebody in this predicament of coming down to the very end with maybe 2 laps to go, and you've got to make another pit stop, and it costs you valuable time and a chance to go into the lead. And the old cars, we didn't have to worry about that.
Because you didn't know. You weren't smart enough to be worried.
It just did it for you.
Michael Andretti is out in front by 5 seconds, but Danny Sullivan now is beginning to close in as we take a look at the Texaco Haviland machine of Michael Andretti working around this circuit. Still out in front, just putting lap number 44 into the record books. Now 6 laps to go for Michael Andretti, but 6 very long laps on this circuit, over 4 miles around. Will Michael be able to hold on? Will he be able to hold off a charging Danny Sullivan? And does he have enough fuel to make it? We'll be back. We're back at Road America. There's the leader, Michael Andretti, but Danny Sullivan continues to close down. While we were away, he picked up another full second, so he is just behind Michael. If you look up the course underneath the bridge there comes Danny Sullivan, and he is on the charge with 5 laps, 20 miles to go.
He can do it. He can do it. That's striking distance for sure.
Striking distance, but what about fuel? Here comes one of the Penske cars in the pits, Rick Mears. Let's go to Jack.
Well, this is that fuel and go that we talked about. They're timing the stop, and now they're using a metal bar. They tap the fuel man away. They lift the car up off the jacks. Rick Mears is off and away.
Rick Mears comes in, a splash of fuel, just enough, hopefully, to make it to the distance. The same appears to be true for Danny Sullivan.
Yeah, that's going to be that'll be the backbreaker, because you cannot recover from 11 or 12 seconds in there, or even 6 or 8 seconds in the pits for a quick splash, because you know, you give Michael that much of an advantage. It's very hard on this long racetrack to close that up.
Sullivan, the Miller High Life car, through the kink onto the backstretch now as he chases Michael Andretti. He closed to just under 4 seconds, 3.8 seconds on the last lap. He appears to be closing that much more, trying to force Michael Andretti to go faster and hopefully at the same time burn more fuel.
Danny is going hard. I'm telling you, he is working that car right to the very limits of the track. He is trying to close up to where he will have, you know, less of a disadvantage.
In Michael Andretti's pits, Ed Nathman continues to watch. There's wife Sandy. Julie, Danny Sullivan's girlfriend, watching their men as they work around the track, and Danny Sullivan continues his closure. He picked up another full second. He is now 2.8 seconds behind Michael Andretti as they work down the hill through the second and third turns and on to the short straight.
Danny is standing on the gas, as they say, as they catch some slower traffic, so that's going to be an advantage for Danny to be able to pull in.
Sandy Andretti worrying her husband Michael around this track. Danny Sullivan pitted on lap 32. There's the Taze car just ahead of Michael. Michael very carefully and very wisely drops a bit back, but look, again, it gives the opportunity to Danny Sullivan. Here comes Michael working up under the bridge. Slower cars just ahead. The advantage comes to Sullivan.
Yes, he is looking and seeing that. He's tasting it. He is ready to make his move, try to get down there. Now Michael gets the shot on Didier Taze, moves by, so he's got clear racetrack, and now Sullivan has Didier to try to get by.
So perhaps it will balance out by the time they get to the end of the lap. Around the carousel, Michael Andretti heads down through the gravel pit. Danny Sullivan comes to the inside of Taze on the kink, gets past, makes the corner, and continues his chase with Michael Andretti out in front.
He's moving right along. Of course, Michael has an extremely good working car. We've seen it all day. He has the fuel to do it, so I'm afraid that Sullivan is going to have to hope for hope.
50 laps, the scheduled distance. 46 laps are in the record book. Danny Sullivan is chasing Michael Andretti. Both have been winners this season. Sullivan, as yet unsigned with Penske for next year, would like to prove his worth with a victory here today, but if he does so, he erodes Rick Mears' points position in the overall championship. Let's go to the pits again. Jack Arute.
Paul, the Penske team, because it's a two-car team, have 2 separate real-time analysis going here. Now, remember, Rick Mears came in, took on fuel. Peter Gibbons, who calls the shots down in that pit, came up up and discussed things with Nigel Bennett here, and they were able to determine a little more accurately what their miles per gallon were for Rick Mears. That kind of reinforces whether what they're getting read out from this equipment on Danny Sullivan is proper. We take a look here right now, and they're showing miles per gallon needed to finish 1.04, and what they're getting so far in this race is 1.79. So they're well within the parameters to go the distance, so they say they're going to try and turn the heat up, but they're ready if in the last 2 laps he needs to come on pit road.
Try to turn the heat up. Danny Sullivan has got it up full wick right behind Michael Andretti as Sullivan charges for the lead. He started on the pole. He led in the early going, and these two drivers have been seesawing back and forth.
You saw the flame from the back of Danny's car there. He was in the rev limiter, so he is taking it to the limit.
Danny Sullivan driving for all he's worth. If there was a question about that arm that he broke back in practice for the Indianapolis 500, it seems now to have gone totally away. Danny, who loves to work out, hits the gym every morning of his life and has had some special training and special therapy to get that arm back in shape, seems to be back at the top of his farm. So we're seeing two of the finest drivers on the Indycar circuit. Julie is happy with the attack that Danny is now mounting against Michael Andretti.
Might say a little bit about a rev limiter. You know, rev limiter is a device on the car that retards the spark and will cause it not to get over a certain RPM.
You can't tell who's happier. Sandy is happy with the position that Michael has, and I think everybody's just happy that we've got a whale of a race going at the front of the field. And here comes Sullivan. He was scheduled for a stop. They thought they would do it, and now he rolls down for some Penske service. Here is Jackaroo.
And Danny Sullivan brings his Miller High Life entry onto pit road. Again, this will be only a fuel and go. They have taken every last ounce of fuel that they've got. There's about a gallon left, but he's off and away. A real quick stop, though.
5 seconds, and Danny Sullivan is out back into the action.
That's 5 seconds he lost on the leader, Michael Andretti, though. Now, Michael doesn't have to stop. It's, I'm afraid it's all over.
Let's go to the pits, Gary Gerald.
There's a quick follow-up here on Michael Andretti. As Sullivan came in, they had Michael's crew go over the wall as if they were anticipating that he might have to dive in for a 4th time. That, of course, wasn't the case. They're elated. And the irony, Paul, when you go back to 1983, this is the circuit when Michael Andretti got his first ever ride in an Indycar. It was his dad's car driving for Carl Haas, and here he is 6 years later on the threshold of a possible victory. But this fuel thing is going to keep this one in suspense until the checkered flag falls.
So does this car, Michael Andretti, number 6, does he have sufficient fuel to make it the remaining 8 miles in this race? A 200-miler at Road America on an absolutely magnificent day. Cool temperatures, the humidity is down, the skies are beautiful overhead. It may be a perfect day for Michael Andretti, but it will take yet a few miles to determine that, because his tank is certainly running low on fuel at this point. He really isn't pressured at this moment. He should be able to maintain an even pace, an even keel to the end of the race, but the question mark is still fuel.
I think probably there are more fumes in the tank than there is fuel at this point, but all he needs is just enough.
No other contests in the field at this moment as Paul Newman looks on. Danny Sullivan rides in 2nd. Teo Fabi sits back in 3rd place. Rick Mears is 4th. They are not in contest, nor is Mario Andretti, who rides in 5th right now. Ari Leyendyke is 6th. Emerson Fittipaldi rides in 7th, still in a points position. Scott Pruitt is in 8th place. 9th is Raul Boesel, as the white flag is showing with 1 more lap to go for Michael Andretti. 4 miles now, begins to unreel under Michael's car. Will it be his 3rd win of the season? Michigan, Toronto, now here on the road course. Michael Andretti will improve his position in the IndyCar World Series, but look at it. He appears to slow just a bit as he came through that corner. Now he accelerates. The crew still not satisfied that we have victory in hand. Ed continues to watch. Michael Andretti now on the 2nd straight. He talks with the crew.
I think he's just turned it down a bit, or he's taking it very easy, really short shifting, because these cars are no factor here, obviously, and so he's just kind of taking, now he's pulled out, so he figures he can go for it now.
Blind corner under the bridge. Makes the move down another bending straightaway. Next major Counterdune corner is the left-hander leading to the carousel. Danny Sullivan came out and is now running about 7 seconds back. And look at Sullivan, though. Now, he was 7 seconds behind as he came across the line, but now he's moved up between those slower cars, has Didier Tays just in front of him. There is the McKenzie car of Heimrath, obviously off hard. And look at this. Here is Sullivan. Sullivan gets alongside as Michael slows down just a bit. Sullivan goes all the way into the dirt to try and get past. And Sullivan makes it past Michael, who is now fishtailing back and forth. Michael is obviously running the car out of fuel as Danny Sullivan moves into the lead. You didn't think this could happen. We talked about tactics. Sullivan is out in front, and the disappointment is obvious in the Newman Haas pits. They took the gamble, and it did not work. Danny Sullivan on the final lap is able to catch and now move past Michael Andretti. Sandy is broken-hearted. She looks for her husband as Danny Sullivan should appear at the bottom of the hill. Here he comes up the top. The checkered flag is out, and Danny Sullivan has done it. On the last lap, Danny Sullivan gets past and takes the win. Michael Andretti runs it out of fuel.
Oh, once again, this big 4-mile track takes its toll. A long way around here. We thought he had it made around the backside, but that's when it happens. There we see him, parked. Boy, what dejection he must be feeling. Sandy there crying. What a misfortune, but that's the way it happens in big-time auto racing.
Michael Andretti did everything that was necessary. He drove the car as hard as he possibly could. And Mario Andretti has similar problems. Here comes Teo Fabi up toward the checkered flag, and Fabi will finish in second place as he runs out of fuel just beyond the start-finish line. Look at that.
He goes
Teo Fabi darts over.
Boy, that is cutting it fine.
Well, we told you that this was a race that figured on tactics and fuel, and boy, was that the story today. We have never seen a race with quite the tactical positions that each of the teams took. Everybody was involved in this one. But the Penske team and Danny Sullivan came home as the victors. Teo Fabi in second, and Rick Mears finishes in third. We'll be back. Mario Andretti. The Newman Haas team apparently calculated both their cars about 2 miles short, as Mario also ran out of fuel on the circuit. As a result, he's dropped down to 7th place. His son Michael finishes in 6th. The winner of the race is Danny Sullivan, followed by Teo Fabi, then Rick Mears, then Arie Luyendyk. Emerson Fittipaldi, up in the points, finishes in 5th position. Then the Andretti family, 6th and 7th. Scott Pruitt, 8th. Raul Boesel, 9th. John Jones in 10th place. Then Didier Tays in 11th. Fabrizio Barbazza in 12th. Let's go to Jack Arute in winner's circle.
Well, Danny Sullivan is actually caught on pit road here, trying between Victory Circle and the pit exit area, getting the congratulations as we get ready for the Sears Die Hard interview here. And Danny Sullivan, hey, Pocono and now Elkhart Lake. The wrist is really back, isn't it?
It's getting there. It's getting there. A couple more of these will be all right. But let me tell you, that was one race. That was tough. I mean, Michael played his cards and we played ours. I never thought we had a chance.
Now, who made the call, though? Because you guys really were, you know, playing it close to the vest. Granted, you had the real-time analysis all the time. But they said turn the wick up from the pits, and they said go after him and try and make him run out of fuel.
Yeah, but then the part that surprised me was they said that I got to stop one more time for fuel. So I thought, well, I think what they were trying to do is get him to use more. If we backed off then, he would back off and conserve his fuel, and he would have had enough.
Is this a case where a lot of trust in your team really brought you to victory lane?
Well, trust in those computers, I can tell you that. You know, those guys were calling, and I'm yelling back and forth at them going, what is going on? This is not the way to run a race. But you know, it was just one of those deals that they called, they knew more than we did.
How about the arm? How is it?
Arm feels fine now. Of course, this place is pretty good on the arm. You know, it's not too hard. And also because of the pace that we had to run, you know, you're just not really pushing the car that hard.
Well, we talk about the thrill of victory here, but I believe Gary Gerald can tell us about the agony of defeat.
Since it turns out to be a second-place finish, and I don't know if there's really any agony involved or not. This has been a lot of hard work for Teo Fabi today, but I got a feeling, Teo, you're probably pretty pleased to end up in the #2 spot the way things happened there in the last couple of laps of this race.
Oh, I tell
weekend, the old weekend, we had bad luck. We didn't have enough time to have a good setup, and so I didn't expect to finish second really today, and it was very good because I think the next two races our car is going to be perfect, very good.
How much of an advantage do you think you and your team have with this telemetry system that helps monitor this critical fuel situation?
Well, I think every team has the fuel meter on the car, so the driver can judge, you know, how hard he can push. And I think it's very important you can pace yourself and try to keep, you know, the same speed for the whole race.
Well, it was his worst start, back about 9th since Indianapolis when he started 13th, but he finishes up second. They'll take it after the win a week ago at Mid-Ohio. Let's go back up to the booth.
And Ludwig Heimrath climbed out of his car uninjured as a result of this confrontation with a tire barrier. Danny Sullivan is the winner, his 13th of his career. We'll be back with more. Well, we're back at Road America. The race is run, and Danny Sullivan on the very last lap with this move was able to get past Michael Andretti. Look, Danny put it all the way into the grass. Michael was running out of fuel.
That is an extremely brave move because he could have lost it just as easily there. But he saw the opportunity and took advantage of it.
And with it, Danny Sullivan sets a new record here at Mid-Ohio at 123.05 miles an hour. Unofficially, it's Sullivan, then Teo Fabi, Rick Mears, Lyondike, Emerson Fittipaldi. The top 5, Michael Andretti, then Mario, then Scott Pruitt, and then Raul Boesel. And John Jones rounds out the top 10. Mario Andretti is on the tow rope. The race is run, but action continues here on ESPN at the GTE North Classic at the Broadmoor Country Club in Indianapolis. Here's Jim Kelly. And here at Road America, we take a look at the point standing now. After 13 events are complete, 2 more to go. Emerson Fittipaldi still out in front, but you can see the points fight among the top 4 is still very tight indeed. Let's go to Jack Arute.
Well, this is a lot of disappointment in Michael Andretti's pit. And Ed, it was a tough decision. You thought you were going to go for 3 short shifted all afternoon. Was there anything that Michael said on the radio when he ran out of fuel?
Yeah, he said a few words over radio, but yeah, I think he stepped to the challenge. We fought back from early in season, and we haven't won any races by being conservative. And really, we just, who's going to win the championship or not in this race? I guess we lost the championship right now.
Well, but they didn't lose for lack of trying because they ran one heck of a race all day, gentlemen.
Well, Johnny Rutherford saw it very early on. He thought that Michael Andretti's pace was a little fast, and he was short by 2 miles at the end of the race. Michael definitely got stung today. Well, back at Road America, the lineup remains the same for the Marlboro Challenge, the richest per mile automobile race in the world, to be held at Laguna Seca Raceway at the end of the season. Here it's Danny Sullivan that is the winner, followed by Teo Fabi and Rick Mears. Michael Andretti led a good portion of the race, but Michael did not drive the final 2 miles. Let's go down to the pits.
I don't know if there's ever been a more frustrating return to the pits than the one that this young man has just experienced. Michael Andretti, when you come so very, very close, and of course with championship aspirations and all kinds of things on the line, this is a very, very bitter pill, I'm certain.
It hurts a lot, I'll tell you. It's it's pretty much the story of our year, the way it's gone. We've been close, but we're just we're having a problem getting the job done, getting to the finish line. But it's a shame because Kmart Howland car ran really strong all day, and we were conserving fuel right from green flag, and I thought we were going to make it.
He did everything he could to try to win this one, Paul. It just was inches short, literally.
Sad day for Michael Andretti as he finishes out of the top after leading the race for so long. Danny Sullivan is the winner. The Gulf with Jim Kelly will be coming up next. The GTE North Classic from the Broadmoor Country Club in Indianapolis. Danny Sullivan has won at Road America.